So this is Ben Parker, this is Matthew Wilkinson. So we'll start just basically, just a brief.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome, it's good to be here. Good for you to be here. So you just got a very brief sort of intro and you sort of link to the area because that's one of the reasons why we've got this film here today. So
we both grew up in the area. Matt's from Lancaster, I'm from Kendal. I went to college in Lancaster Morton College.
Yeah.
Do you do any higher education at all?
In Sheffield, so that doesn't count, does it? But I lived in Lancaster for 18 years, and I've come back to live in Lancaster. So glad to be back in the area.
Yeah, we're local boys.
yeah, that's good. So we'll just start with a pretty obvious sort of question really about the film. Where did you get the idea? I mean, some people might know a little bit about the sort of the controversy with Hitler's death and that, but so that was obviously an inspiration. But how did you sort of go from that and develop a script and what went into that?
I'll keep it quick, I promise. I didn't know about it at all. I read it in a book, researching another script, a footnote that said, and obviously they snuck the remains of Hitler out of Berlin, which I didn't know about. So I read up on that, and I found that story really interesting. Stalin was really keen not to let anybody know that Hitler was dead because he was worried about people, the Allies taking their support away. So I thought it was a really good premise to sort of set, actually initially a short story, a short film around. And I wrote it as a short film, and then the more I researched, I turned it into a feature. And I hadn't yet done my first film, and it was, big-ish World War II film. I thought I wouldn't be able to do this as my first film, so I did my first film, and then I gave the script after my first film to Matt. Matt, I'm not going to talk for Matt why he liked it, but it went from there.
I think I liked it because I couldn't think of a better. I saw it as a sort of treasure hunt, which probably sounds wrong, but I couldn't think of a better treasure for people to be chasing than the corpse of Hitler. I just couldn't. I'd never seen that before. That all these forces converging on this thing, which is sort of like our Ark of the Covenant, but at the same time, it's the most terrible person to have ever lived in modern history. And I just found that kind of great hook and a great USP. So I probably didn't necessarily come at it from the point of history. I just came at it from the point of what's in the box. The what was in the box was so intriguing and terrible to me, and all the different reasons why people would have wanted to get to what was in the box all felt compelling and right for a good romp with this story.
We knew each other, but I didn't know you were from Lancaster.
No, we met in France. No, and I guess that's cool that two people from the Northwest ended up collaborating together, but we were both in London at that time. But I knew Ben was writing scripts, and I watched The Chamber, which was Ben's first film, and really enjoyed it, and thought this would be a fun adventure to go on, really. But same, I didn't really know the story. I guess my understanding of it was Hitler shot himself in a bunker, but I had never bothered to wonder what the aftermath of that was and why there was no evidence and why there's such a sort of shroud of secrecy around what possibly did happen. So I also thought that was quite a good investigation.
It took a long time to get it together. We tried to get money together and get people interested, and then I think it's sort of well known. We sort of can say that the Diner rig was attached. And
as the Harriet
water part, and we were getting finance together, and then COVID hit. Diana passed away, and because of COVID, we lost some financing. So it was the worst thing in the world. And then, luckily, we sort of brought it back together and then shot it at the tail end of COVID. So we shot all of this within COVID in Estonia as stand-in for Poland and Berlin, and that was fun.
We're an entirely different cast.
Yeah.
It was one of the weirdest processes ever. We entirely cast the film, we financed it on the cast, then COVID hit, then one of our cast died, and then we ended up having to recast half the movie and keep the money. Tom stayed, and I think Tom was helpful in terms of investors and all the rest of it. But we did have a bit of push and pull around who was going to end up in the final roles. But when we say it took a long time, it probably didn't take more than like 4 years, probably like that. Yeah, so maybe in indie film terms, 4 years isn't the greatest time ever. No, we didn't go Gandhi on it. But there was a lot of push and pull and lots of things fell out, and I think we can get onto it later, but we didn't initially think we were going to make the film in Estonia, and it predates the Russian invasion of Ukraine, right? So Estonia borders Russia by like 200 miles or something. From where we were, it was about 200 miles. But we sort of managed to sneak the production in with very enhanced. Sorry, I've lost the question.
What was the question? You're from the northwest. What's the question? Isn't it?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Some of those points. Excuse me. About that sort of that treasure hunt, really. It's sort of that sort of struck me. It's like this. I think you might have mentioned it in an interview previously. This Hitler's body is almost like information, if you like. Whoever controls that information controls the narrative. So. So there's another level there that kind of is relevant today. That's an interesting.
It's all about burying the truth, really. So that when I wrote the script, it was 2016 when I wrote the feature script. Brexit had happened. Neo-Nazis were marching with tiki torches, and I wanted to write a script about Hitler being dead and talk about the horribleness of lies that are allowed to carry on and turn into conspiracy theories when you don't, say this is it, this person died, this is the definitive truth. Evil things can spawn, and so yes, in the film there's an actual real corpse, which is probably more than was in real life, but the theme of the film is really about the absence of finding anything like that and what it can lead to.
So I'll open it up now for any questions from the audience.
What was Tom Felton like?
He was embarrassingly lovely. Yeah.
I was just wondering, how long was the shoot?
6 weeks. 6 weeks, yeah. I flew to Tallinn for pre-production and it was snowing, and by the time we left it was Scorchio. So if you ever fancy going to Estonia, it's a lovely place for summers and snow in winter.
Also, don't shoot a film that's 40% night in July in Estonia when there's only 3 hours of dark.
Yeah, we when we got there, it was almost like 10 hours of night, and then by the time we left, there was only 3 hours of night. So we had to sort of reschedule some of the night shoot stuff towards the end of the film, and we had to fit it into a 3-hour window. Fascinating, all boring. Sorry.
And a brown bear attacked our set.
We had bears, we had snakes, we had a lot of mosquitoes, but other than that, Estonia was really nice.
Were there any moments that ended up in the final film which came as like a result of things not going to plan on set at all, so to kind of rethink on your feet?
Yeah, we tried to adopt there are no mistakes, we're just going to incorporate it all. When she gets thrown through a window, because of Brexit, we couldn't get the sugar glass for the window, so she actually gets thrown through twice. She gets thrown from the inside and then from the outside on between 3 weeks because we couldn't get the sugar glass for the window. So that's sort of like a roll with the punches. We'll figure out how to do that. It was touch and go whether we were allowed to burn down the church, and because of scheduling, I couldn't actually be there when they burnt the church down. I had to shoot something else at the same time, so it was a sort of second unit. I wish I was there.
I was there. We paid a local farmer to burn down his farmhouse. And the Estonian fire brigade came out and we burned that. And I sort of realised as it went up that I'd never been anywhere near a real fire before. We stood there for like 40. It's amazing how quickly it went up. It was incredible how hot it was and how far back you had to stand for it. But watching this building literally burn down in real time was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
you got well paid.
There are lots of practical things in the film which we try to do everything we could practically, and with doing things practically, there are things that always screw up and mess up. I actually wanted one of the characters to fall down the stairs as he was going down the stairs, and then he kind of put his back out, flipping a table, so it was like the opposite way around. I kind of wanted him to like put his back out, falling down the stairs. All professional.
It's not like a happy accident or whatever, but the actor who plays Graeber, I think his background is theatre and possibly musical theatre, and he was quite obsessed with this idea of singing a song as part of his characterization, and I really loved that part of the movie, but I think it was sort of unexpected, wasn't it? That he was sort of pushing to sing this all kind of Germanic, whatever it was, hymn or anthem or whatever, and yeah, and that was him sort of improvising rather than a happy accident. But I just thought
It's
probably was it. Yeah.
Ask me anything.
What made you choose Estonia? Was it a funding issue, or did you go for the bears?
We went for the mosquitoes. We looked at Poland. We looked at a few places. Romania. Matt had previously worked with the Estonian co-producers.
I knew the Estonian co-producers from another feature that hadn't happened yet, but has happened since, a movie called Last Sentinel. So I'd been in Estonia for that production, and I just got on really well with the co-producers. We went in around the time that they launched this cash rebate, which was quite a good tax subsidy that helped with the financing feature. But also just the terrain seemed to suit as a double for Poland. That really seemed to work. They had great crews over there. It was more economical in terms of locations and labour.
It's a really nice country.
Yeah, it's a really nice country, really welcoming country. And we kind of had no hiccups from the point we arrived there, really. They just sort of ran the show and gave us exactly what we needed. But it was more cost effective than doing it in Western Europe, is the honest answer.
Yeah. One of my favourite films is Tarkovsky's Stalker. And I always thought it was filmed in Russia. And then when I got to Tallinn, everybody kept telling me it was filmed there. So I had this lovely moment where I was filming a film in Tallinn, and someone said, "Oh, your favourite film was filmed here." As a side note, I felt really good about being there in Estonia and doing the film there, and like Matt says, the crews are great. And then afterwards, we also got to show the film at the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival, which was a real nice homecoming screening.
And we went in after Tenet had filmed there, so if Christopher Nolan can take a film to Tenet, then I think we're in pretty safe hands.
The budget of that came.
Oh yeah, was the budget of our film maybe?
Yeah, I was kind of sick of everybody saying, "Oh well, Christopher Nolan did this with this much money."
What was the hardest part to shoot?
The hardest part to shoot. The hardest days were when it rained and it's in the middle of the night and you were literally covered in mosquitoes. That was the hardest sort of part of it. But I think the hardest part technically to shoot was the church, everything in the church with all the weapons and the action. It's quite a lot of bells and whistles, and that was quite difficult. It was also, could be quite dangerous with the stunts that we were doing and the practical effects and stuff like that. And it was always filled with smoke, which was always fun. But yeah, my first film was set in a submarine filled with water. And I kept on thinking, nothing can be as difficult as being filled with water, and then you're in a room filled with smoke, and people have stunts going off. That's quite difficult.
I'll ask a question again. So in terms of influences, it's sort of, obviously it's the kind of war movie, but it's very sort of horror theme there. Sort of reminded me in some a little aspect there of the 13th Warrior, and I just wondered if that had an influence on what other sort of films were influencing the sort of tone, because it sort of it does take on a bit of a journey in that sort of respect.
I absolutely adore the 13th Warrior, so it's probably a good chance that I'm like subconsciously stealing from that. That's likely. My main influences, I think Matt and I are both like big fans of westerns. In fact, when we got to Estonia, we started seeing some of the locations. Well, we've got to do a Western here, it's amazing. But things like Rio Bravo, the Treasure of the Sierra Madre is, was the influence on, there's a buried treasure of sorts, and people are trying to get it. But yeah, it was more like Sam Peckinpah. That was what I was going for. Those sorts of the influences. There's a film called Come and See, which is amazing war film. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's very harrowing. We knew that we weren't going to be that dark and harrowing, but that was definitely influenced. There's a burning church in that. There's at one point there's the corpse of Hitler in that as well. So that's obviously there as well.
Any other question?
Nice.
How did you approach working with two actors playing the same character at different stages in their lives?
It was more about them, the actors actually. When Harriet came on board, Charlotte was on board, they both wanted to talk to each other, and we shot Harriet in the middle of the production for a week, and she wanted to see stuff that Charlotte had done so that she could calibrate her performance. A sort of weird awkwardness was that they didn't have the same colour eyes, and because Harriet was only working for a week, I thought, we'll make Harriet's eyes Charlotte's colour, but it didn't work that way because you always got to go darker. So Charlotte had to wear darker eye lenses for the whole shoot because of Harriet's eyes, things like that. But they talked to each other a lot. The hairstyles that they were really in tune with each other to try and sort of see what they could do to give the impression that years later this was the same person, same mannerisms, maybe the same way that they did their hair. They don't look that similar, but hopefully the stuff that we did, you don't think about it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Obviously, you read the footnote somewhere about ferrying Hitler's corpse out. But in terms of like the element of the wolf and the use of the burning herbs and stuff and all that kind of warfare, like what other truthful historical influences were there on the story, or was it a lot of your imagination?
There's a lot of my imagination in there. It's, I should have had a big caveat at the beginning, not a true story. But there are, I kind of enjoy it because the theme of the story is, you take a kernel of truth, and you can either do it in a good way or you can do it in a bad way. And lots of people take a kernel of truth and push it in a bad propaganda way, which we're seeing evidently at the moment. And the werewolf was real. The stuff that gets the exposition about Goebbels creating a guerrilla force that would call the werewolf to make them sound scarier, all that's true. Their numbers is hotly debated. I talked to a professor in Vancouver whose specialty is guerrilla warfare in the Second World War. He gave me some tips about what to put in there. It is more of a sort of narrative thing to say that they're that as a fighting force, they're that put together in that age. They were old men and kids in real life. But yeah, and the herb thing is real. But by way of Poland, there were a lot of guerrilla fighters using tactics like smoke and hallucinogenic smoke to try and confuse the enemy and then sneak in because they didn't have weapons. They couldn't attack with loads of weapons. But when I read that, I thought, I've got to do something scary and horrible with that because it's such a great premise.
Is that Archie?
Linked to that, so there's a hint of the supernatural at a certain point because of the werewolves and also like a prophet-like chest you bury at night. Was there ever a temptation at the script level to take it into the supernatural, or how did you deal with that?
The script was called Werewolf.
Yeah, the script was called Werewolf. When Matt read it, it was called Werewolf, and everybody kept on reading it and said, "Where are the werewolves? I want werewolves." And I think a lot of the reviews when the film came out were, "Where are my werewolves?" So Matt and I have to do a werewolf film now. But when I wrote it, it was more like folkloric horror. I saw the Nazis as vampires. Hitler was willing to sort of drain the blood of the nation. He didn't care. He would kill everybody for his cause. So they were the vampires. and there were werewolves. There were people who hid in the night. They came out at night, and they were dressed in bearskin. So I saw them as the werewolves, and then the sort of Frankenstein's monster of this mission they had to do. Those artistic things in my head when you do it.
And the whole story is about monsters, but it's about allegorical monsters and monsters in people's minds, and it's about the control of having something evil on your side or against you. So, yeah, allegorical monsters know your werewolves.
Definitely got that feel from the box there. That almost remind me like Dracula's coffee being transported. But just a point on the actual Hitler, that was really good. It's sort of very creepy and really gave off that evil presence. I wondered how, or who was responsible for that kind of model?
A Swedish guy called Andres Bratus was the guy who made Hitler, and it was hard to talk about it as a prop because really early on it sort of had a horrible personality, and it came over on a plane, and when it arrived, people kept telling me that Hitler was here. Hitler had arrived, and when he came on set, everybody sort of snuck a look at him and would get freaked out.
And the first day of filming was the box in the kitchen. In fact, the first scene of filming was the box in the kitchen. So it's incredibly hard for Ben as a director to be in a room where he's got to negotiate 7 actors and this incredibly sort of powerful, prominent prop at the heart of it, but also kind of a great kickstart to the production because you all know why you're here. You're here to have this discussion. You're here to figure out what the resonance of this sort of demonic resonance is.
And Tom didn't want to see the prop before the scene, and he was super freaked out by it. Like when the lid came off, he was disturbed by it. So there's a lot of other takes where he really hit the shit out of him.
I think that's about all we've got time for. Maybe one quick one.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, roughly, what kind of budget did you have to pull this off? I mean, approximately.
Oh, last question. What was the budget? 2 million.
Yeah, less than 2 million sterling. Yeah.
We had, because of COVID as well, we had COVID contingencies as well and stuff.
That is the time to wrap it up, unfortunately.
Thank you very much for coming out on a great Saturday afternoon to see the film. I really appreciate it. Thank you to program it for us. It's been a delight to be here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for coming. We'll go join in saying thanks for Ben and Matthew's time. And good day.